Hi, good evening. I'm Lonnie Stonich, the Executive Director of FAN, and I'm so glad you're all back in 2023. I'm honored to welcome you to tonight's conversation between Charlotte Burgess-Auburn and Liz Gerber. Thanks for joining. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year, and we're honored to have the robust support of dozens of schools, nonprofits, corporations, families, and individuals from across the country. We're committed to our vision of an informed and compassionate community, and will achieve that vision by presenting fresh ideas that elevate minds, expand hearts, and make the world a better place. We have hundreds of videos of past events archived on our YouTube channel, so please be sure to explore to get updates when new recordings are posted. Now, no further ado, let's bring on Charlotte Burgess-Auburn, who is a designer, artist, and educator with a background in production for fine arts and theater and experience at MIT Media Lab. She has been the director of community at the Hasso Plattner Institute of Design, known as the D.school, at Stanford University since 2005, where she teaches classes on the role of self-awareness in creativity and design. Charlotte has made a long career of being the designer, stage manager, and producer in rooms full of lead actors and directors. I love that line. Always cultivating the skill of translating intentions into action. Her new book, You Need a Manifesto, as mentioned, was published in October of 2022. Liz Gerber is a longtime friend of FAN, and we hosted her for events in 2013 and in 2016. We love her. She is a professor at Northwestern University, co-director of Northwestern's Center for Human-Computer Interaction and Design, and faculty founder of Design for America, an award-winning national network of interdisciplinary students who work together to solve problems they care about in their community. Liz has served as an innovation strategist, executive advisor, leadership coach, and innovation trainer for several of the world's premier organizations, including Fortune Global 500 Corps, philanthropic and humanitarian organizations, and educational institutions, and FAN. Now let's welcome Charlotte Burgess-Auburn and Liz Gerber.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlotte, for being here. We have so much to talk about, so I'm going to jump right in.
Okay.
Aren't manifestos for political movements and social change movements? What is a manifesto?
Thank you so much. I love it. I love that this is always the first question.
It's a strong term. So
it is. It's a strong term. Yes.
Rethought it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the history of the manifesto is one of that runs throughout political and public life. And you know, a manifesto is a public statement of purpose and a script for action. And historically, they've been associated with political movements or public movements. And that's because it has historically both been this statement of action or statement of purpose, but also a recruiting tool, right? A way to recruit other people to your way of thinking or to your way of being or to your cause. The issue that I have with that kind of manifesto is that in this moment, we are all being recruited by everyone else, right? At all moments of the day, my telephone is constantly recruiting me to everyone else's cause. And I feel really strongly that like now is the time to redefine the manifesto as personal, as a way to recruit yourself to your own cause, to recruit yourself to your own values and beliefs, and to use a manifesto not as a way to recruit other people, but as a way to help you navigate your own life.
Oh, yay.
I know.
I read the book, then I got it. Okay. You had a great description in your book, which I thought was provocative, which you said a personal manifesto is a Swiss Army knife of self-awareness. So can you speak to that analogy? First of all, love Swiss Army knives, but speak to that. Unpack that for me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it is a tool that can help you do many things. Right. So the point of a manifesto is not just one thing, right? it is a way to help you see kind of deeper into your life. But also it's a very practical tool to help you work your work, right? So, you can hang on to ideas and inspiration that help you navigate the work that you're doing, very practical advice, right? Practical methodologies, but you can also try on, it can be a way to help you change your life. You can aspire to new behaviors, new identities, or new ways of thinking, right? It can help you take risks that are important to you, right? If you're not encouraging yourself, right, egging yourself on a little bit, it can be hard to identify the moment when an opportunity comes your way that is the one that you should reach for, right? That is the one that you should stretch for. If you're a cautious person like me, the risks that you should reach for are sometimes hard to say yes to. And I feel like that's a wonderful thing that a manifesto can help you do. It can really help you kind of buck up and get you to do the things you want to do in life.
Of that. So you said something interesting. You said cautious people. So it made me wonder, who do you think really benefits from manifestos, and who are manifestos? Is there anybody it's not for? Like, is it just for senior leaders who have had worlds and years of experience, or can a 5-year-old have a manifesto?
Yeah,
what are the limits?
Yeah, I don't think there are any limits.
Okay.
I don't think there are any limits really,
Okay.
because a personal manifesto is just that. It's personal, and it should be personalized, right? And so it can be modified and altered to suit people in all stages of their lives. And in fact, it should be a living document, right? It should be a living thing that moves and changes and grows alongside you. If there are people who don't need manifestos, it's probably people who just live the manifesto, right? Like Pema Chodron, Pema Chodron didn't need a manifesto. She was the manifesto, right? Like I just,
What was, I don't explain say more about that. What was?
Well, I guess I would say, if you are living a life that is so deeply embodying your values that you have kind of fully stepped into living your values in life, then maybe you don't need something to help you remind yourself about it. But for most of the rest of us, it's always going to be a good tool.
Okay. Excellent. And all ages, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think so. In some ways, I feel like the smallest kids don't need a manifesto either, because they are living it. It's before they've figured out how to alter their behavior to suit other people.
Okay. I love it. Let's get right into this. Sounds how you do it. This sounds like hard work. In fact, I read the book and I thought, well, I'm going to do it. And then I chickened out because I thought, oh no, I need to have big thoughts. I need to have lots of space. I need to have, some candles lit. I needed some incense. So how do you figure out what's important to you? How do you actually start this now that I'm convinced that I need one? But how do I actually get it going?
You just start. Liz, you know these things that you just start. Everyone knows this. They know that you just have to start. The hardest part is convincing yourself to stop listening to the little voice that says, I need to have just the right spot and the right moment and the right, the right lighting and the right, right? Like all the procrastinatory voices that tell you that kind of stuff. And the thing that I find most exciting about this is that, I do it with students. The only requirements are, you just need a pair of scissors and a glue stick and a piece of paper, basically. Okay.
I don't have the glue stick, but I'm ready. What do I do?
Yeah, awesome.
What do I do?
So the first thing that
do I need glue? Because that's
you don't need glue at the moment.
Okay.
You,
I
you
have
can,
scissors.
you can manage it. You can manage it. But I mean, the crux of the exercise is that I ask people to collect inspiration and meaningful manifestos that they encounter in their own lives. And I have a whole bunch of suggestions for people to go look at, right? I ask them to collect that kind of inspiration, use it as raw material to construct their own manifesto.
So question, does it have to be, I'm looking around my desk, does it have to be manifestos, or can it be, here's a message I got from my kid's school the other day. My kid came home and said, you know, we learned today that you're supposed to ask, is it true? Is it kind? Is it helpful? And I wrote it down on a Post-it note. I don't, is this a manifesto? I don't know.
Yes.
I have it on my computer. So does this count?
Yes, okay, so you did in that moment, you did the thing that I'm asking people to do, which is to notice something in your life that speaks to you, that resonates with your personal values, and to capture it, to collect it for yourself and hold on to it, right? So you have begun your collection, Liz. You've already started. You don't need to be intimidated because you've already begun.
But what do I do with it now? I mean, I have it on, I love that.
You add more to it, right?
Okay.
So you take a look at the things that you know inspire you, people you admire, you know, there are people ahead of us in this world, right, who have done this work before. They have spent years like finding out what it is they value and believe and writing it down for us to read, right? Like they have been so generous with their time and their effort. And it's out there for us to discover. And my goal is to encourage people to go out there and discover it and discover what it is that really resonates with them, to help them understand what are their values, what are their goals, right? Where do they want to take those in life, and how do they want to hold on to them, right? How do they want to hang on to this self-advice, this Swiss Army knife, right, of self-awareness, this navigatory tool that can help you make decisions when the going gets tough, right? In moments where you are under duress or you're not sure what to do, you have a sort of practice already, a practice of understanding what it is that you believe and decisions that you want to make that you can return to help you make those decisions in difficult moments and in the easy ones, right?
Great. Can we get on to a few more concrete exercises? You have some wonderful ones in the book, rather. You have a values exercise, you have a why exercise. Would you explain how some of these work and how we might do them at home, with our students, or with our family, with our employers, employees, etc.?
Yeah. So before I get students to get into the whole meat of the exercise itself, I usually ask them to spend a little bit of time and to do a few short exercises considering and kind of refamiliarizing themselves, or kind of bubbling up ideas that they have about their personal goals, their values, their ethics as they understand them, and their bias, which is something we all have, right? But we need to bring to the surface and examine in order to really hold it up into the light of day and understand kind of how we've come to believe the things that we believe, right? To examine that. So one of the ones that I love the most is a little exercise in trying to identify what your values are, which, you know, I find very difficult when people are like, what do you believe? Like, what are your values? And I'm like, I don't know, faith, hope, and charity. I don't know. I'm sort of, I get stunned by it. And so I try to help people to get to those concepts in the easiest way possible by asking them to do a little exercise thinking about things they love to do. Okay, so here's how it goes.
Okay.
What do you love to do? For me, one of the things I very much love to do is garden.
Great.
I ask folks to if folks are playing along tonight, they're listening along, you can grab a pen and a piece of paper and do the same thing as Liz is thinking about it as well. Think about something you love to do and write a short paragraph, a little short story about it, about what it is you love to do and why you love to do it, right? Mine is kind of like this. Even though I really hate dirt underneath my fingernails, like I hate, with the hatred of 1,000 burning suns, I hate dirt under my fingernails. I love gardening. I love it. And because for me, plants are they're like a puzzle that I'm trying to unlock or understand. I'm trying to solve it. It's just like magic unfolding, right? I love to see things thrive, to see this sort of like incremental growth, right? It's amazing. So once you've written just a little tiny bit about what it is that you love to do, I want you to do a little activity, which we use at the D.School all the time, which is we call a Mad Lib activity, which is you use a sentence and you just plug in some words. Okay. So, and it's like this, it's like, my love is like a red, red rose. Okay. So it's my loved activity. So the thing you love to do is like, and then I'm going to give you a metaphor. Okay. I'm going to give you a word and then you're going to complete the sentence. Okay. So here it goes. Gardening is like a giraffe because, got anything? What's your loved activity?
Wait, am I putting my loved activity?
Yeah, your loved activity. Loved activity. My loved activity. What is it that you love to do?
Hiking.
Hiking is like a giraffe because
it gives you perspective that you don't normally get.
Excellent. Okay. Now, hiking is like a river because
it's energetic and constantly flowing.
Hiking is like a clock because
it reliably brings me joy.
Gardening, or rather hiking is like a peppermint because
hiking is like a peppermint.
It's okay if it doesn't.
It makes me feel like a little kid.
Excellent.
Peppermint candies make me feel like a little kid, like a sense of
Excellent. Okay. So now you want to take a look at all those statements, right? Okay. And can you pick out some specific words in the clauses after because that might point to something that you value about that concept?
Yes, I said joy multiple times, wonder, energetic.
Yeah.
That's absolutely.
I like the idea that you might also like this sense of being like youthful or playful.
Youthful and playful.
Right. So in my book, I have what I like to call the shortest possible list of core values.
Great. Okay.
It's like 14 or something like that. And I generally, but if you go online, you can find incredible lists of words that are kind of like core values. But instead of just like picking out the things that you think are your values by looking at these lists, you can actually go to the things that you value because it's coming from things that you do, right? It's coming from your behaviors and your actions, right? And you can go through this exercise again and again with something else, right?
Can I ask a question? Why do I have to do the analogy that like it's like a giraffe?
Yeah, the metaphors are just a way to generate. They're just a way to generate a series of responses to why you like something, right? So it's a prompt that allows you to be generative about it.
Yeah, I think if you just asked me why do I like hiking, I don't think I would have been as is clever the right word, but as excited about the words. I wouldn't have had to think about what I really love about it as much.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it also, if you ask directly what it is that people love, they often move to objects rather than verbs. right?
Interesting.
And what we're really looking for in order to get to values is verbs and adverbs.
Oh, interesting.
And
Okay.
and so by giving yourself like 5 or 6 or even maybe more kind of extremely random and quite funny,
Yeah.
right, words to analogize with, you get the opportunity to really float up kind of some interesting and specific verbs that then can help you kind of expand out.
I really love that. That was, and it was fun to do.
Yeah.
Do you find that it's best to do, you have some opinions about whether you do this with people, other people, whether you do it with yourself? How do you find this is most generative?
I mean, I love to do it with a group. I think it's really fun. Like people do them individually, but as a larger group, it's really, it's a really playful and fun a set of activities to do, and it feels joyous. It feels like you are playing and having fun, and doesn't feel too that sense of like, you're going to write your manifesto, go lock yourself in a room alone, and right. For me, there's nothing new under the sun, right? Like everyone out there has already had better ideas than I have, and all I need to do is find them. And so by doing this together with other people, you're actually you're contributing to that moment of communing with other people and giving other people great ideas and getting great ideas from folks. Being able to like connect and communicate while you do this work is, I find it to be something that doubles the value of the work itself. Like I get a lot farther in collaboration with folks than I do on my own. That's probably not true of everybody. Some people also have a more introspective and kind of like personally reflective style. And to understand what it is they believe and how they feel about that, they need a moment of repose, or they need to retreat from kind of more active and exciting, extroverted situations, right? I think you and I probably find ourselves most of the time in the sort of extrovert side of the world. But for people who really are true introverts, like this is also a terrific set of exercises to do, and you can completely do them on your own time with your cup of tea and your music.
And if I'm thinking of, I'm a school teacher, I'm going into school next Monday, I've got 10 minutes. Is it reasonable to do something like this with my students? Let's say I'm a middle school teacher.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you just need to scope it, right? Like you just need to, it's really all about the scoping of the material. Like the value of the work is in the doing of it. So even if you did this kind of like, I love to do this because, or the thing I love to do is like this because, right? You will still get, if you do 3 of them, you will get to some really fun and funny and interesting answers about what it is that you value as a middle schooler, right? And you can have a strong and deep conversation about the things that you value and why you value them, just based on those, like that super quick exercise. You can also do stuff where you like bringing in 3 or 4 manifestos or other kinds of writing that kids may resonate with, or that you've already introduced them to, and ask them to literally pull it apart. Give them scissors and glue and ask them to pull it apart and put it back together as a statement of their own and share it. I think, I generally say, like, none of the work that I do is new, and none of it is like earth shattering, right? Like it's all really pretty simple stuff. But it's in the doing that the value comes out, right? It's in the doing of it, and sometimes in the doing of it together, that the value of it really comes out.
I love that. You had you wrote something really interesting. I'm going to quote you. You said, Your life and work are enriched by interacting with other people. One of the best reasons to know yourself better is that so that you can connect better with other people. And I found that really interesting, that while you're talking about a personal manifesto, there's so much, there's a goal of connection in the process and in the knowing of what your values are, which I thought was really beautiful. I want to ask one more process question and then get ahead to how do we actually write it? You know, if I don't consider myself a writer, what do I do? How do I do that? But before I get there, I want to ask you, you presented a really interesting exercise of also figuring out what your values are. And I believe you call it the why exercise, asking why. I'm wondering if you can explain how that works and give an example of how people might use that exercise to understand their core values.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that exercise is really more about goals, which are really connected to your values, but it's sort of about looking into your kind of like daily backpack of stuff that you're doing to understand the goals that you are actively already pursuing. I think often we don't do that work, right? We think about goals as things we have not yet done. But actually the vast majority of our goals are things that we are actively involved in currently doing. Sometimes the goals that we are actively involved in doing are not the ones we want, right? So the exercise that I ask my students often to do is to, again, pencil and paper, like write down, what did you do yesterday? Like, just give me a list of everything you did in your day, right? Like go back to the weekend, talk about what you did last weekend, like when you had free time, what did you do, right? What are you planning to do this weekend, right? What are you planning to do next week, right? Okay. So to get a sort of time frame of the actions and behaviors and things you're actually actively involved in, right? And then I ask them to think about, like, well, in 6 months, what do you want to have done, right? In 10 years, what do you want to, right? Like, who can answer that question? That's what I want to know, right? Like, who can answer the in 10 years question? I don't know anybody who can answer that question, but I do know that I can answer what I'm planning for next weekend or what I'm hoping to do, you know? And then I ask people to really look at it and ask themselves some further questions about it. Like, why are you doing that? Right? Why are you, taking your child to school? Like, I can tell you this morning, I took my kid to school.
Why did you do that?
I did, you know why I did that? I did that because there's no public transportation that's super nearby, but I also do it because I love talking to her in the car. It's my moment of connection with my child. Every day I get a little tiny bit. Sometimes it's really brief. Sometimes she's practically sleeping next to me, right? She's 16. So, but every day I get a moment of interaction and connection, and I get to say, have a great day at school. I get to say, I love you. I get to, so I do it because it connects me with her. Right. And so I can look at that and be like, wow, actually, one of the things that I'm pursuing right now, one of the goals that I'm pursuing right now is connection with my kids. Right. And then I can look at that and be like, do I like that goal? And the answer is yes, I love that goal. I'm hanging on to that one for dear life. When people, call me up and say, like, can you do a podcast at 8 a.m.? I say, I'm so sorry, I can't do a podcast at 8 a.m. I have to do the school run because the school run is incredibly important to me because of this, right?
Yeah, that's very interesting. So look, just to revisit the exercise, think about what your activities are and then ask yourself, why are you doing them? And
why are you doing that?
Ask yourself a couple times. Like, it's not just because.
Yeah, get a little deeper, right? Because usually sometimes the answer is pretty basic. Yeah. Right. Sometimes it's like, today like, for instance, the example that I have in the book is like, yesterday I wrote part of my book. Right.
Okay.
And I was like, why'd you do that? I was like, well, because I want to deliver it on time, right? I really want to deliver it on time.
Okay.
And I was like, why do you want to do that? Right? Why do you want to deliver it on time? I want to deliver it on time because even though I fail at this all the time, I want to be the kind of person you can count on.
Okay.
Right. And then when I look at that, I see a goal. It's like, oh, you want to become the kind of person that people can count on. Right.
Got it.
Right.
Okay. So Charlotte, you instruct us to sit on the floor, all of our pieces of paper all around us, pictures, images. And I love that you say sit on the floor because it takes your explanation, it takes some of the seriousness out of it. It makes us feel potentially more playful. I think that's beautiful. So now I'm surrounded by little scraps of paper and inspirational quotes. Yeah,
I mean, the first thing is make sure you're collecting raw material that you love, right? The second piece is take some time to go through your raw material and find out what resonates with you, right? The pieces that resonate with you and cut them out. Like really truly treat it as if it were a raw material. Like, are there things that you like and things that you don't like as much, right? Like you're pulling things out that really resonate with you. And this has to do with really trying to access your kind of subconscious understanding of your values, right? Without going through your much more analytical, like, what are the things I should value side of you, right? Right. Instead, it's just like, wow, I love that quote. I love the way that's put. I love that. That speaks to my heart, right? It speaks to my my emotions, right? One of the things I loved when I was researching for this I was reading Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, and I have a quote from it in the book because it's so perfect, that methodology of explaining a kind of system, a system of thinking that is really doesn't feel like thinking, right? It feels like feeling, right? It's an incredibly fast system of thinking that is throwing up all of these kinds of impressions and understandings that you previously had. It's kind of where your biases are held and all this other kind of like very gut emotional kind of stuff. And then there's this other system that is what you think of yourself when you think you're thinking, right? When you think of yourself as thinking, you're thinking of this like system 2, highly analytical, like I'm thinking very hard thinking, right? Right. Yes. I'm choosing and deciding and doing these things, but both of those kinds of experiences are actually thinking, right? So like feeling is actually also thinking, right? And that is why intuition and like gut instinct and all of those other kinds of things that we are like, I'm going to trust my gut, right? Because that is in fact thinking, right? We know things and our brain is kind of popping them up to us to say like, yeah, that's the one, right? And then our analytical brain is like, okay, okay, that's the one. I'll take that one, right? I mean, the other system is also popping up like, have a crawler, have a, right? Like, it's time for a donut, like that kind of stuff. And you got to weed it out, right? You got to pull it out. So when you are going into your raw material, this inspirational material that you have, your job is to use kind of more of your system 1 thinking, more of your emotional side to really identify the things that speak to you, the things that resonate with you, because those are the things that will then show you a little bit more about what it is that you value, right? That are part of your instinctive kind of like your current knowledge of yourself, right? And then you're going to need to use your system 2 pretty significantly to curate those things, to structure them in a way that is going to work for you, to find frameworks that are, that are exciting for you, and to find mediums and forms that are going to make it show up in the place that you need to use it in, right? And that's going to be a little bit different for lots of people, right? But what I do in my workshops with students is I give them 10 manifestos to work with. I give them 50 minutes and a lot of really great music to take their time to pour through these manifestos and identify what it is that resonates with them, cut it out with their scissors and have a little pile of things that they want to hang on to that resonate with them, and a big pile of stuff on the floor to recycle, right? And then I ask them to take this smaller pile and organize it in a variety of different ways. Take a few minutes to organize it one way, take another few minutes to organize it another way, find some groupings and affinities, and choose a couple of potential methods for frameworks. So a top 10 list, a word cloud, right? Something super unstructured like a word cloud, right? And something super structured like a top 10 list. And then I ask them to try and find something in between. And then finally, the last piece of the exercise is to ask them to curate a manifesto on a blank piece of cardboard with a glue stick and the pieces of paper that they have, using a framework that speaks to them. It doesn't have to be the final framework that they're going to use, but it should be like an attempt of some sort, right? And get it all stuck down on the paper, right?
And this is not digital. I mean,
no, physical.
Why not?
I mean, you can do it. I have to say, I have had students in our COVID era who have done an amazing job of creating digital murals that are really fascinating and interesting to look at, and experiential, and are obviously something that speaks to them. And that's the most important part, right? It's a medium that speaks to you, a medium that you consume, that you will use, that you will find a place for in your life. I'm a hands-on gal, so I love to work with paper and to make something physical. I also find that if you do that, it helps to treat it as a first prototype. It helps people to not see it as the final product, which I think is important when you're doing this first thing.
Say more, but like is it ever done? I mean, is there ever?
It's never done. It's never done. You're just always
an hour and I'm done. No.
Yeah, you're always on your way somewhere. And I think, that's the main thing about starting, is like the bar to creating a personal manifesto that is something that you believe in, and is a statement of your deeply held values and beliefs.
Yeah.
As you encountered, it's a little bit intimidating to start something like that, right? So for me, like, the lower you can lower the bar to begin, right, the better off you are. If you can just get the baby step to be as baby as it can possibly be, by just like asking somebody to fill in a Mad Lib that gets them to a little bit of information about what they value, and then ask them to look at a manifesto and choose a piece of a statement or a couple of statements that really resonate with them and put them. That is the beginning. It's just the beginning of understanding what it is you believe and articulating it for yourself, so that you can use it in moments when you actually need that knowledge most, that knowledge of yourself the most.
Okay, so I've got my piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
Got my words on it.
Yeah.
I'm just walking around ready for the moment when I'm challenged and I read my manifesto.
Yeah.
Like, how am I actually using this? Like I'm trying to picture myself walking around with a piece of cardboard.
Yeah. So there's a variety of ways that you can use it, right? Like I usually ask my students, after they first finish their first version, I ask them to talk with one another about it, to share it with one other person, and to talk with each other about it. And then I ask them to revise it. So after they've spoken with somebody else and tried to like step them through it and understand it and talk about it, it's so interesting. They have more thoughts about what they believe, right? After having been in conversation with another human being, they have more thoughts about what they believe, right? And so I encourage my students to not just talk to one other student, right? To like talk to like, you can do it by yourself, but it's great to do it with someone who's a buddy of yours, or a friend, or someone who's going through a similar experience. It's wonderful to spend time with a mentor talking about the things that you believe and the ways in which you want to go about stuff, like somebody that you admire and spend time with. You can get incredible wisdom from them, but also that you can just get their feedback, their reaction. I've had people put their manifesto like up in the background of their Zoom so that it becomes something that they talk about with every other person that they encounter on Zoom, to get kind of feedback about how people like just ideas about what they think about those things, right? And it can become a kind of a way to introduce yourself in a kind of transparent and authentic way. If you treat it as a prototype and you talk to people about this developing understanding that you're getting about what it is that you believe, right? Like you can really begin to have some terrific, deep conversations with people right off the bat, right? Like the small talk goes out the window when you're talking
about this. And yet at the same time, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that requires so much vulnerability.
It does. Yeah. That piece, like there are certain people who have a great affinity for that kind of work and others for whom that is not something they want to engage in. And that is totally fine, right? Like you should expose this work to other people at the pace and at the level that you feel most excited and comfortable with. But it also is something that you can do together, right? You don't have to do this work entirely on your own.
Wow. Thank you. I really appreciate that you recognize people have different modes and comfort.
Yeah, for sure.
Of sharing. You do talk about this interesting idea that I thought was really beautiful, which is coming up with group manifestos. So this is maybe leaders or classroom leaders. I would love to hear more about the process of group manifestos, and in particular, how you think about that in relation to individual manifestos.
Yeah. I think, a personal manifesto is really something that that is by, for, and about you, right? Right. So when we begin to, but it doesn't mean that the ideas in it are not useful for groups. It just means that you have to, kind of modify a little bit the way you're thinking about something in order to make it useful to a larger group. One of the things I really deeply believe is the more you know about yourself, the better you can work with other people, right? So one of my colleagues does an amazing job with the Manifesto project with our Design for Extreme Affordability class. They run the Manifesto project with the students individually, right? So that everyone is taking some time to really think about, this is a class where students are, they are working with partners that are in vulnerable situations. They are working collaboratively with a group of other students who come from other fields and other parts of the university. So there's a lot of like collaborative friction that goes on in the class. There's a lot of really trying to understand the context of the people that you're trying to work with, right? It's a little bit fraught. So the more that these students can get a sense of like being transparent about what it is that they're trying to do and how they're trying to behave with one another, the better off they are. So they do the Manifesto project individually, then they make a team manifesto. They come together and they share their different manifestos with each other. And then they talk to each other as a team about what it is, the kinds of behaviors that they want to promote in the team, the kinds of standards they want to have, right? The kinds of values they think their team should uphold, right? Like, and they get those all down kind of on paper. And then they do it as a class, and they kind of make a class contract about kind of like the values that the class is bringing forward and the ways in which they want to be working with their partners. And then when they finally get introduced to their partners, they create a kind of a similar social contract with their partners about how they want to be working with one another, like collectively, right? So it's not like we're the team and we're going to tell you what this, how we're going to work together. Instead, it's like, hey, let's all get together and try and understand your process. We'll tell you about our process, and then collectively we'll create a contract about how we want to work together. Right. So it's a different situation than really creating this sense of like personal manifesto of deeply held beliefs. But there is a through line of like the ways in which our values individually are going to show up collectively.
Yeah, interesting. Two questions that come from that. One is, what's the role of power dynamics? If there's a large power dynamic, how do you create a manifesto, or does that influence how you create a manifesto? And then the other question is, I could imagine individual manifestos being a lovely way of creating points of shared connection between groups that otherwise think they're not connected.
Yes.
So we have different political backgrounds. We're not connected. Oh, but we both love to drive in the car with our children and talk with our 16-year-olds on the high school.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I'd love you to speak about both the power dynamic and then what's the role of this group manifesto process in connections with people who ostensibly have different values than you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the power dynamic thing is really critical because it gets back to that like kind of political manifesto situation where if you are if the people with the power are making the manifestos, then it's more likely that it will end up being a kind of litmus test for belonging, or a propaganda machine, or a I mean, it wouldn't. I'm not discounting that somebody might do a great job, but it is much easier for it to turn the corner into being something that just feels like lip service and is not actually real. Right. Okay. And so when you are trying to make a group manifesto, it's actually really important that you acknowledge what the power dynamics are and that you adjust for them. Right. You sort of shift for them. And that doesn't mean, necessarily discounting somebody who you consider to be a leader in the group, but it does mean probably like elevating people who are not considered to be leaders in the group, but who are members of the group. Right. It doesn't mean you discount wisdom. It just means that you really have to understand that wisdom can come from anywhere and everywhere.
Can you give me a concrete example of how you've seen that play out?
I mean, I think that extreme affordability class is a great example of that.
Okay. I
think it's very easy to, and it has happened in the past, right? That, Stanford professors have connected with partners even in our local area, with folks who are working with underserved people or with homeless people. I'm sure you see this in Design for America, where, you really need to take into account the power dynamic between the, privileged professor and student kind of team going into an area where there are people who have a lot less power, a lot less control, and really trying to make sure that you are not adding to the suffering or oppression that people are experiencing, just in order to like experience your learning moment, right? Right. It's pretty critical. And so the Design for Extreme Affordability, methodology of using manifestos is really designed to elevate the voices of partners, and really understand what, not just the issues and problems that people are dealing with, but the ways they want to connect with one another, the ways they want to work, the types of relationships they want to have, the outcomes that they would like to see, right? And I think that is about like making sure that you're creating a power dynamic that is productive, right? And a lot less off balance.
Thank you for taking that on. And now I'm going to part two of my question, which is highly politically divided society. Do you see potentially this exercise of sharing manifestos, writing manifestos as a potential bridge to people who otherwise feel quite disconnected from each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can do it in a way where it's really about you, right? If it's really not, I mean, I feel like one of the issues that we are grappling with right now in this nation is that very often our manifestos are about the other, right? It's like, I don't like you because you, right? Do blank, right? Right. And instead it needs to be like, here's what I love and value in my life and about me, right? And if we can share those kinds of things, we will very frequently see that we carry many of the same values, right? Many of the same things that we love and care for and would like to promote in our own lives. I don't think it's a panacea for everything, but I do think that trying to turn a little bit more away from the antagonism of connection and more into the like kind of self-understanding might help us do a little less shouting at each other, hopefully.
Thank you. So Lonnie's going to come on in just a moment and ask some questions. So I'm going to seek my last one in, which is, we talked all about manifestos. What is your manifesto?
Oh, well, I have,
is that an okay question to ask?
Yeah, no, I mean, I have pieces of it that I share with folks. I have things as kind of funny and basic as I like quiet even though I'm loud, right? It's like a statement that I had that was like a revelation to me. It was like 10 years ago. I was like, oh my God, I like quiet. Even though I am like the loudest person, I need quiet, right? Like my husband is a filmmaker. He sits in a room all day, like editing things. He's got NPR going. He's got CNN going. He's got the audio from the thing that he's editing going at the same time. Like there's music in the background, and I'll just be like, oh my God, I cannot think. You have to turn them all off and put your headphones on so that I can think. So there's something as simple as that, and then something like considerably more sort of giant and big and philosophical, which is, that like everything is more complicated than I can possibly understand. Right. And I feel like that is one of my most basic beliefs. And it grounds me in a way that is incredibly useful. Right. It says to me, like, when something is going wrong, part of the reason why it's going wrong is something that I cannot grasp. It's like, I just can't understand. Like someone else's experience that I don't agree with or that I don't believe in, like, there's a piece of that I just don't understand. I just haven't grasped, and I probably will never get, right? So it allows me to give somebody the benefit of the doubt, right? But it also allows me to be hopeful, right? That I can change things, right? It allows me to, in a moment where I'm winning, be a little bit more humble, that like, part of the reason why I'm winning is something that I don't get, right? Right. I'm just lucky, or like, I just don't understand what's happened. Right. And it's the same thing when I'm losing, right? It's like, that was rough. It's like, you know what? Something about that is just, is beyond your ken, and it's going to be all right. Like you're never going to know it, but it's going to be all right.
It's going to be all right. I'm going to you. It's going to be all right. Thank you. That is the best message I've heard of 2023 so far.
What
kind of questions do we have?
So great
conversation. Great conversation. We want to remind everybody watching that we are going to have an after hours. It's going to start at 8:05 in just about 10 minutes. You get to come to after hours, buy a copy of this fabulous D.school guide. It's so great. And look, kids, usually these hardbound books, they're like $30 these days. This thing is the low price of $16. $16, and it's got pictures and foldouts.
Oh my gosh. Can I talk about the foldouts?
No, not yet, because I got some questions to ask you. 15. What did I just say? $16. come buy it at the bookstall. We've been putting in links, buy it, come hang out with these two nice ladies. There are some excellent questions that people have been posing, and I'm going to combine 3 of them into one. And this is going to be lightning round, Charlotte. Okay, so don't go down too many rabbit holes.
I'm ready.
So let's see, this will be Jennifer, Robert, and Anne. So draw the distinction between manifesto and mission statement, business plan, or vision board. What are the differences be, or so don't get too lost in that. So
yeah, I mean, my version of a manifesto, like what I'm talking about when it comes to a personal manifesto, it's very different from a business plan, right? A business plan is a plan. A manifesto probably should not be a plan, right? I think a vision boards are pretty close, honestly, right? Like, you know, there's elements of a vision board that are really like they're pulling you towards things that you admire and that you strive for, right? And I think there's that in a manifesto. That's an element. You know, it's also stuff that helps to encourage you, right? Like things that are egging you on and keeping you going, right? But there's also stuff in it that might be a little bit more practical than a vision board is going to give you. That's really about like, okay, is it A or B? Like, what are my ethics in this situation? Right? You know.
Well, I think there's also a little bit more of can be a little bit more of a linguistic aspect to the manifestos than perhaps vision boards sometimes. I want to also, in after hours, I want to talk a little bit about how these manifestos are not written in concrete or granite, that these are things are highly fluid, just like people are fluid. Like it's almost like manifesto of the month, and then what's your manifesto this month, and what about next month? So it also, you know, kind of curbs that attachment, and also makes it easy to, like, you know, demo and redemo and demo and redemo, and not get so bogged down in which can be such a malaise for so many people, the perfectionism of, is this exactly all correct? It's like, man, let go, you know, who cares? I want to make a little note that Katie, you've asked so many great questions during this. I'm going to go with one of yours, and I hope you join us at after hours, because you obviously have given this some nice thought. I'll go with her one question in particular. How do you honor different manifestos within a family, specifically while raising young children? Let's say partner and I have personal manifestos that both differ and align depending on phase of life. Is creating a family manifesto, like a third party, appropriate, or does it contradict the intent?
Yeah, I don't think it contradicts the intent at all, right? I mean, I think the ability to be articulate about what it is that you believe individually makes you better at being articulate about what your collective values are, right? So if you are in partnership or in relationship with someone else, like the ability to talk about what it is that you believe allows you then to identify the things that you believe in common, the values that you hold in common, and the behaviors that you feel like are the right ones for your relationship, right? For your unit, right? And I think, you know, I think that's true of many families, right? Like, you know, we choose our friends, we don't choose our families. So the better we can be about articulating what it is that we believe, the more we can kind of come to grips with the fact that we don't always think the same way as the people who are parts of our family, and we can identify the things we do connect over, that we do believe in common, and hopefully strengthen our relationships through that.
Okay, we are at 8 o'clock, and as promised, we will be closing down. I want to first give all joy to Liz Gerber. Thank you so much. We so appreciate your generosity of spirit and time for FAN and for our community, our big global community now. Thank you so much for your time. We could never adequately compensate you, though we'll try sometimes to pay you for what you're doing. We just love your work. We love your involvement. Thank you so much. It's like just such a bolt of sunshine, and I look forward to talking to you in about 5 more minutes. We're going to give them a 5-minute break before we open up the after hours room. So if you get there in your waiting room, don't panic. Angela, in Q&A, I see your question and I will send you an email. So rest easy. Everybody have a great night. Come next week and come here. I mean, this is I love this program and self-awareness. And next week, oh man, you have these two incredibly sensitive, smart, brilliant people speaking to each other about beauty and aesthetics and life, and how you find meaning when sometimes you wonder what the heck is going on. It is such a great month of programming, everybody. Thanks for coming, and I hope to see you all in about 5 minutes.